Well, folks, it is Defender Fridays. We are here at our weekly rendezvous at the forefront of information security. My name is Matt, part of the dedicated Lima Charlie team, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. This is actually the third Friday in a row that you all have had the benefit of having Matt on the show as your host, and I'm hoping I get to hang on to the baton a little bit longer, but nonetheless, it's our chance to to jumping into the dynamic world of information security, exploring with pretty much every topic we can with seasoned professionals. And today our special guest is Pedram Amini. Did I say that right?
You did indeed.
What is on that shirt, sir? Is that a black hat? Is that a black hat and a horseshoe?
No, this is a magnifying glass. It's actually the company logo for InQuest, or the last revision of it. And these are our black hat shirts. We always throw a hat on top of it for the event,
Right.
giving out these shirts annually.
Well, Pedram, I can't think of a better segue than for you to explain a little bit further about what all those words meant, who you are, where you're from, what's going on. And sir, we're here to hear that journey today. Let's go for it.
Sure, sounds good. So, born and raised in New York City, based out of Austin, Texas now. Spent about equal time in each, actually. Bounced around in between for school and work and all that. But officially, I think I'm more Texan this year than New Yorker. Like, just barely. I think I just passed it by like a month.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
It is. It's a nice place to be. Austin's got a fun place in my heart. I call it home. 20 years in the game, 10 years on the offensive side of the house, doing vuln dev, exploit dev, mostly working with bug bounties, iDefense VCP, and tipping point zero-day initiative. And now 10 years defense. I had a garage startup B2C prior to InQuest called JumpShot. And I've been working on InQuest now for approaching a decade. We just turned 11 this year.
Congrats,
and I joined
man.
shortly after we launched.
That's awesome. 11 years, dude. That's amazing. Good for you. What was JumpShot?
JumpShot was a B2C play. The idea there was Tipping Point had 3Com had just been bought by HP. Me and one of my close friends, Dave Vendler, we decided we wanted to do a business together. And, based on the various ideas we had and how much money we had to invest, we bootstrapped a B2C play where we basically built a USB stick that you would plug into a Windows PC. And it was designed for, like your average lay user, nice, cute, cartoony interface. It would pop up and you would just hit go, and it would boot into Linux and kind of forensically open up the drive, and we would enumerate all the startup paths. And so we could take a really aggressive approach at pulling malware out of the startup chain, whether it was like a rootkit, bootkit, whatever.
Awesome, man. Speaking of which, Jeff McJunkin just joined us on camera. I'm not sure which part of that sentence I should tie to him, but here he is. Dude, so hold up. So that sounds like a background in what, digital forensics and IR?
To a degree, I didn't have much of an IR background, but I knew malware quite well. And so really our unfair advantage there was, let's go enumerate all the persistence points, right?
Right.
While Windows is running, you got to deal with potential rootkits, you got to deal with potential even userland things that are messing with you. So by turning it off and focusing on the subset of binary code that's actually going to start on boot, we had a much smaller, simpler problem set to deal with. We didn't have to scan, 100,000 binaries on Windows. It was more like 1,000 binaries and DLLs that were actually in the startup chain, because most malware is going to have some form of reboot persistence. So by just changing our scope, we gave us a pretty decent advantage.
I like this. So this is a way to think about data reduction against things that you've got to break apart and whatnot, is just to say, all right, instead of trying to go after everything on there, let's just go after the stuff that survives a reboot. Let's just go after persistence mechanisms as a way to cut down and maybe get us something faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And the other thing to think about is, when it comes to being right or wrong on determining if a certain binary is malicious or not, if you're wrong, you've just removed something. False positive could remove some like business application. But when it comes to removing something out of the persistence chain, being wrong just means you got to start it back up again. So there were many times where we had kind of like a gray area, like, this thing looks suspicious, but it's not quite malicious. Let's at least pull it out of the startup routine as opposed to fully quarantining it. And then we would notice that when we booted back up into Windows, sometimes whatever their runtime AV was would actually clean up now the remnants. With that thing being in the startup chain, it was able to compromise the OS and application layers and could evade detection. But
Mhm.
once we pulled it out and it was nothing but a corpse on disk, then your AV can come and clean it up.
I like that. I like the approach that y'all took with this. Only primarily because I think a lot of times, a lot of security analysts, a lot of blue teamers and stuff, not that I'm throwing them into the same category or throwing you in the same category, but I think a lot of folks just kind of stare at these waterfalls and are like, I have to count every drop that's in here. How do I even get started? When I don't know if that's necessarily the case that needs to happen. I think there's ways to go through system analysis and look for data reduction and stuff. I would almost equate that to like some like, and I'm going to say legacy threat hunting techniques, but I'm dating myself more than anything else. But like least frequency of occurrence, for threat hunting and stuff. There goes Jeff. I knew it. I knew it was coming, Jeff.
I was getting ready to mention that one, but
Yeah.
I like you pointing out that the incentives are a bit different. Like for your vendors in play, AV, EDR, false positives cost them market share. False negatives cost you IR time. Where if you're doing it custom to your own organization, you can afford to be a bit more cavalier with, we're pretty sure this is bad, let's block it, and then reach out to the user. Whereas your EDR is not going to reach out to you and say, hey, do you mind if we add a signature for this thing?
Yeah.
I also like the focus on persistence mechanisms because it's one spot that is kind of a telltale for many attackers. Like pen testers, shorter term, it's entirely possible that I used authorized access, assume breach, and it set up 0 persistence mechanisms. But real world attackers are fundamentally different, and they tend to want to have a few and hone in on those differences between regular users or pen testers, red teamers, and real world attackers is a good one. Least frequency occurrence is a fun one. And there's all sorts of fun stuff. I'm not sure if you want to talk about how you're actually going about the mechanics of this. Like, is it auto run C followed by like cell on the local host side, or how are you doing this hunting for persistence?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's been a while. It's been over 10 years since I was in that problem space, but I remember there was over 200 locations. If you start doing the research, you'll immediately find like your first 24 obvious persistence points. If you dig into it further, we had found over 200 different places, different ways you can boot it. You can like hook into the boot chain, and it started at the very start, right? So we're looking at like the master boot record, the volume boot records, looking at the actual executables and DLLs and drivers that are loaded into memory. Looking at the side things that they load as well. Looking at the paths that they might load from. So, you can have like your path priority order could actually bring in a piece of malware versus like the real piece of it. Tons of places in the registry, the browser, there's system services that start up automatically where you can get persistence into them. So, at the end of it, we spent almost 2 years on the R&D side before we actually launched the product, which that was, of course, as per usual, it took twice as long and cost twice as much for us to get past the point of actually releasing the product. And second only to health issues is financial stress matters. But there was a lot of research involved. In fact, at the time, I think this is probably still the case in terms of reading and writing registry hives. People had tools for like nulling out a password record so you can like get back into your Windows system, but no one had written and reverse engineered the Windows binary hive file format to actually make it a complete readable, writable, create whatever key you wanted, remove whatever key you wanted, change the permissions on it. So that was the biggest hurdle for us to even get started. I want to say it took us like 6+ months of reverse engineering, seeing a gazillion blue screens before we finally got to the point where from Linux, we could actually edit that registry hive and then boot back into like a nice clean Windows environment without breaking anything.
Man, I love it. I love I love just the grit that goes into making this happen and work. I feel like these days there's a ton of, let me just go download some code from GitHub to see what works and doesn't. But I appreciate you guys. And I'm not throwing shade, right? It's definitely a different time. I think what you guys were doing in the past has, it definitely had, it feels to me like it had like an essence of the time era. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because we didn't have all this stuff that we have now. There was no chat GPT of like, enumerate 100 different persistence mechanisms for me to see.
I feel like it's common origin story of many DEF CON talks and such in the past is, well, I saw this interesting problem and then I spent 4 months in a cave and now I came forth with the solution. And now it's, I downloaded this GitHub repo thinking I was extra elite for not taking I didn't have to just apt install something in Kali. I git cloned something instead, and it didn't work, and that's where I give up. And we call that persistence on the research side nowadays. I did just post in chat, talked about persistence mechanisms, and spoilers. My favorite one is always DLL search order hijacking. It's not the binary itself that's showing up. It's a dependency of it that you're taking over. And there's been a lot of great work on proxy DLLs and such. But the hexacorin link beyond the good old run key is, because there's more than just the registry, the good old run key. This is a 142-part blog post series so far. And there's a couple other posts in that area, like this one, that is not posting to all of them. But this is usually third-party software, but as an attacker, for the record, tying your persistence to actual user behavior is also a very good tradecraft perspective, because it means that when you're blooding into regular user activity, like when they're starting up OBS or whatever random application, using application-specific persistence is a good piece of tradecraft to bring in.
I have a feeling that there's even more that could be added to this.
Oh yeah, no, it's 142 parts so far. HD, if there's anywhere you want to chime in, this is your area. I like chatting, but we're happy to have you.
Yeah. Hey, there he is. The mic came off.
Thanks for joining me. I just saw you pop up on the screen. How are we doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, I think I was supposed to join for the July one. I saw a random invite for a panel. I was like, oh crap, did I miss something? So I'm very glad to join you guys.
We want you for all of them. Yeah, come on in.
Fun fact, HD and I are very close neighbors. We live like 2 blocks from one another.
I almost see him out that open here. So
HD, is that wine collection for real then? Because I mean, there was a magic trick with a bottle earlier, but I've seen far too much YouTube to believe it.
I'm in New York now, so he hasn't seen this spot.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right.
About Jump Shot though, my favorite thing there was probably the beer videos and style. Like all the marketing was so fantastic. Like it was such a breath of fresh air when everyone else was, at the time doing like the big yellow semantic ads and things like that. It just completely changed how folks thought about security branding in a lot of ways.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Who was in charge of the marketing? Who was in charge of the marketing?
So, David and I were very close with every single aspect of the business, but we work with a local Austin firm that's founded by a close friend of mine named Ryan Dawson, called 1323, based out of Austin. Yeah. And so they helped us with all the brand and the look and feel. The goal of this really was, can we build a product that we could sell to my father, right? Everybody in this room, I'm sure, in history has had to deal with going home for the holidays and repairing people's PCs. And the system, the approach was the same. It's all right, let me download some Linux boot CD, let me start digging through the system and cleaning things up and running a bunch of tools. So the thought process was, if we can automate this in a fashion that my father could run it, then we've got a product there. And so when I say it's like literally point and click and go, it is it is that simple. It's all cartoon. Like we didn't have features. We had cartoon characters that had a job. So like there was a malware removable guy, right? There was like a browser cleanup gal, right? And anytime we had a new feature, we would introduce a new character. That character had like a dossier. And I mean, the look and feel of the website was just, it was beautiful. Everyone who used it really enjoyed it. And even the USB sticks we sold, they were one of the 3 characters. We chose a subset of the characters, 3 of them, and you could pick them and like squeeze their belly and like the stick would pop out. And at the time, Kickstarter was pretty new. And we had launched on Kickstarter, really more of a marketing exercise than a matter of like raising the funds, though we did put the funds towards hiring, making our first hires. And at the time, we were like in the top 10 highest funded projects for tech. That record has since been blown way out of the water. But it was a great choice for us to launch on Kickstarter. It basically gave us our initial group of power users, people who were in the same shoes, folks that we can empower to go clean up their friends and family PCs. And part of the model was it had like a leave behind. Yeah. So if you had bought a 5-pack or something, you could like gift one to somebody. And so it could actually spread virally. And outside of Kickstarter, we even started targeting PC repair shops. Like I would go in, Dave and I would literally split up the town. I'm like, all right, you take these 10, you take those 10. And we go talk to them. We're like, look, how do you do PC repair? And undoubtedly, it's going to at some point end up in reformatting the system. I'm like, before you do that, before we throw the hammer at it, try our solution. If it works, we're not going to charge you anything. It's just good data for us, good testing for us. And I remember a time where, Dave and I were running around town just looking for PCs. Like we would sneak into hotel business centers and anywhere we could find a PC, we'd run in there with a USB stick and plug it in just to do a compatibility check. It was really hard to get this to work. The Windows environment is, one thing I've learned, I will never do it again. It is far from homogenous. There's just an incredible amount of variance out there. And, doing something this deep, if you mess it up, people are going to look at you. Like the last thing they ran before they had any problem, the blame goes on you. Like if their dog died a week after they ran jump shot, they'd be like, my dog died. It's your fault.
Yeah.
So we had to deal with a lot of support things. We had to be really clean about how we went in and out during that cleanup operation.
Post hoc ergo propter hoc. Absolutely. By the way, we found your Kickstarter.
Oh yeah. That video is.
I got 3 characters here, man. I got what looks like a ninja, a cop, and a top-hatted mustache.
Oh, that would be
like
so
the names for him too. I'm hoping there's the Star Trek reference there with Kobayashi.
I think Dave named that one, and he's more of a Star Trek nerd than I am, so that's quite possible. Or it could have been from what is that movie with that crime movie with the hidden guy and Usual Suspect.
Yeah, Usual Suspect. I was like, wait a second, Kobayashi only has 2 meanings. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right, so Pedram, hold on. Like this is all cool, but talk to me how this prepared you for your current role, your current role at InQuest. Like, I mean, this is I'm not gonna lie, I'm staring at Holmes, Torque, Zilch, and Maximus, wondering how these characters turned into this awesome work you're now doing over at InQuest. So man, do me a favor, make the tie and like let's fast forward and see how all this prepared you for where you're at now.
Sure. I mean, the biggest preparation was just in terms of like building the grizzle from the grind and the grit. I mean, it is. I think someone earlier mentioned about how you got to vanish into a cave. It's not just 4 months of cutting yourself off from the world and working obscene hours, but it's a tax on your life. I probably in the 6 months of like even reverse engineering the Windows Hive, I probably taxed myself like 2-3 years on my body. To get that done. So really the best thing that came out of it is just building that resilience and then having the success in the end. We ended up selling that company to Avast and going through the ups and downs, the roller coaster of the startup experience, and then coming out with the success at the end really gave me the confidence that I could do it again. And that's kind of what rolled right into InQuest. InQuest is a B2B play. And it started in 2013 is when the company launched, but the first line of code was written in 2010. It was actually born out of the basement of the Pentagon. The company founder and CEO, Mike Archimone, had become a close friend of mine. I had met him during my time at Tipping Point during the Zero Day Initiative. Pentagon was a customer of the Tipping Point IPS. We had a whole bunch of technical exchange. We were the first inline device to ever get deployed in that DoD environment. So we had a lot of technical exchange meetings. They had to get comfortable with the team, what was going on. And in the process of working with that team and really just kind of absorbing their mission, I got a chance to see some of their additional tooling. We were very curious about, net, we couldn't detect every zero-day initiative vulnerability through the IPS, but we wanted to find exploitation of ZDI flaws in the wild. We're better than the Pentagon. So we would work with that team to write detection engineering to get it into other products in order to see if any of our zero-day, that we know about is being thrown at their systems. So anyhow, one of the tools that they had homegrown turned into InQuest. And through the process of just building a friendship with the team and building a friendship with Mike, when the golden handcuffs had come off of the Avast jump shot acquisition, just timing-wise was perfect. Mike had approached me. He's like, hey, do you want to join forces and productize this homegrown solution you've had experience with? We have people asking about it. Of course, we only have one iteration of it. We need to productize this thing and get it out to market. First customer is going to be the Pentagon. I'm like, that sounds amazing. What a great opportunity to bootstrap a second company with one of the greatest customers you could ever ask for.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about that. Like, what is it? I mean, so dude, tell me what it's like to kind of stare that contract down from head on, because I think for me it would be a twofold thing. Jeff apparently has a very fisheye wide angle lens there. So tell me what it's like to stare that contract down or to stare that customer down, because there's 2 schools of thought. I would argue in my head. The first one is like, all right, let's build this thing. Let's find an ideal IC. Let's find an ICP. Let's grow this. Let's make it work. Let's get the testimonials, do all this thing and whatnot, right? But then the other side of it is like, all right, we got this contract. We got this customer who is not guaranteed work, but, guaranteed work. And this is a really cool place to build and test this thing out. But at the same time, their tolerance for you kind of beta testing this thing, was there an agreement there, or how did that kind of work out?
Well, keep in mind, this had been, the initial version of it was basically built by the SOC analysts for the SOC analysts and was providing value. That's why there was interest in it in the first place.
Right.
But, the main thing there is, of course, there's like mission-oriented outcomes everywhere. But a team like in the DoD space, in the Pentagon, like they're supremely mission-oriented. And like that sense of responsibility, that onus, kind of, you feel that on your own shoulders. Like you don't want to mess up. If there's ever a support issue, like I've been there in the basement debugging my own code before, because you feel so important with everything working, tip top. But it was a supremely unfair advantage for us to have that as an initial customer. Partly because we weren't the only security tool in the stack, so we got to focus our efforts on where everybody else wasn't good. Right? You had all these like sifters basically dealing with the cosmic microwave background radiation of internet noise going on. So by the time the stream got to us, the network stream got to us, it was already fairly clean of the noise. We're digging for like the deeper threats. And that right there, I think, was probably the best advantage we had, is being able to focus on, hey, where does everyone else not good at? Like we were a gap filler, basically. You've got best of breed across the board. Still obviously things are getting through, always will. That's why you have a whole breach suppression vertical. But that really gave us that advantage, is honing our skill set on the threats that could bypass everybody else.
And I like that. That's actually a really like cool way. I think for anyone who's listening, and look, we got security folks on this call, and I'm just kind of looking through the list here. I'm going to say like all stages of their career and all stages of supporting a team, getting ready to build a team. Maybe you've built a team and you're kind of overseeing, or you're working through stuff, you're figuring the business side out of it. I want to just remind everyone, like, what some of the stuff, Pedram, that you're saying, that I'm hearing you say, it's kind of like there's this other side to cybersecurity, which is someone's got to run the business as well. Like, it's cool to just like sit around and hack away and tool at stuff all day long. But at the same time, it's like, what's the best place for us to build this product out? What's the best place for us to test and design this? How do we go and win customers? How do we bring this in? And I think for a long time, there's folks who live in this, and this isn't a negative statement. It's an appreciation of someone's current position, right? But it's kind of like, oh, it's security. Like everyone's going to need security at some point in time. So I'm going to get hired. You know what I mean? But then the other side of it is like, hold on, how do I find in a tech stack as complicated as the DoD, how do I find an edge or find an advantage in there, which you guys did? And I think that's like a really cool way of being like, there's another side of cyber here, which is, that little GitHub project could turn into a thing. That little bit of code could turn into a thing. You never know. And it's cool to like see you guys kind of watch and chase that down, since then, I mean, how much of an enabler, how big of a advantage was that for you guys to have that big customer up front?
I mean, it was definitely a huge advantage. I mean, being bootstrapped gives you obviously full control of the company. If you end up going down the venture capital route, institutional capital route, they're looking for a large return, partially because the portfolio theory is going to have them missing on most of their investments. So they're driving you towards always a larger scale vision. So the biggest benefit we had is we could run the company in the direction we wanted without getting distracted by these, delusions of grandeur of trying to get like 100x exit, right? We could focus on the mission, on satisfying the customer, on closing the gap. And
I'm going to rephrase for extra harshness. Nice. VC funding, they want to see the very few unicorns that make 1,000x, 10,000x returns, and they're willing to have everybody else fail to do so. No matter where you're going, they're happy to strap a rocket to you. And if you slam into a wall, then, well, the good news is somebody else will reach up well to make up for it. So like they want to accelerate wherever the hell you're going. Incentives don't always align. And it terrifies me to have somebody else that is just looking for the money, that is so much in charge of the fate of your company. So I'm generally anti-VC. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, it's a solid point, Jeff. And obviously, for someone who's gone back to back, I'm now 10, 12, 15 years bootstrap from 2010 to now 14 years back-to-back bootstrap. Obviously I share a lot of that same vision, but I will give this perk. One nice thing about taking institutional capital, outside of the fact that you get to stay in your own wheelhouse, you're going to have a team of people that come to the table. Because when you're bootstrapping, you're super lean, right? Like you're very, very lean coming up. It's hard to get really great talent. That's outside of the equity pool. The nice thing about that venture capital, rocket ship is you fail fast or you succeed fast. And that is one thing that I tout to people now, is that you really want to figure out if the thing you're chasing is going to work, right? If it doesn't, it'd be good for it to fail fast so you can go try something else. Otherwise, you catch a rocket ship by the tail and you run with it. I love to give this example about who makes Angry Birds. I believe it's called Rovio.
Yeah.
And if you look into it,
I don't know why I know that so quickly, but yes.
It's like their 50-something-ish title, right? Which means they had dozens and dozens of either failures or, mild successes before they built this like multi-billion-dollar global brand that has a movie and everything. Everyone knows, what an Angry Bird is. So there's some value to that, like churn, that quick fail. Whereas when you're bootstrapping, especially in the security space, it's very hard to kill you. If you're lean, if you're agile, if you're talented, you're going to be able to pick up customers. In a worst case scenario, you can always pick up consulting dollars. And so that company can stay in limbo for a lot longer. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're making the call between venture and bootstrap.
Yeah. Pedram, we're actually coming up close to the top of the hour. I want to give you a chance to I think we kind of just jumped right into your background and stuff like that. Where can folks learn a little bit more or connect with you? I think you posted your LinkedIn information in the chat. And there's that, but are you guys going to be at Black Hat this year? Any conferences you're going to be around? My favorite part about the summer season is I can start to ask questions like, are you going to be at Black Hat? Are you going to be at DEF CON? Are you going to be at this? Are you going to be at that? I feel like it's weird to ask that in January. And if I ask someone, are you going to be at RSA? The answer is always no. They're there, but they're not available, right? But yeah. Black Hat tends to be the more like, I'm going to catch up and see people. So aside from Jeff doxing you, no, I'm just kidding. Aside from the links there, Pedram, where can we see more of you, see more of InQuest?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, as Jeff just posted in the channel. InQuest is on Twitter as well. We're hosting a party this year. It's our 6th party. It's on the Wednesday right after the conference closes, the top floor of the Mandalay Bay in the Foundation Room. It's always a good time. There's zero sales nonsense there. It is just drinks and catching up with friends. Absolute blast. I really look forward to this thing annually. So you can catch me there. RSVPing is open. Come and join.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. All right, we got a minute left, so I'm going to use that minute and ask you for a quick hot take here. One piece of advice you'd give. There's someone on this call right now. I don't know who it is, but there's someone on this call who's like, should I go start that thing? Should I go do that thing? What advice do you have for them?
If you're thinking about doing it on your own, I would pump the brakes on that. I think it's really important to have at least a co-founder, if not multiple. People get hung up on controlling all the equity or having a bigger piece of it to themselves. Keep in mind that a big piece of zero is still zero. You're going to get sick. You're going to get tired. You're going to have family issues. You need someone who can keep that, can pick up the flag and keep pressing forward while you take a breather for a minute. So that's one of my biggest things is find a good co-founder, someone that you can be in a foxhole with, and don't go it alone.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Great advice. And we are right at the top of the hour. I think my clock's about to turn. So Pedram, this is great. Thank you so much for being here with us today on Defender Fridays, man. It's really cool to see the different types of guests, the different variants of insight that we get on this little weekly thing that we do. But this has been such a really cool, I'm not going to call it a high level discussion, but a very different take on the business side of cybersecurity. And I love it. It's great to get this. So thank you so much for being here, man. Hopefully I get a chance to catch up with you at Black Hat. I will be in Vegas for far too long this summer, but I'm totally okay with that. But that being said, everyone, thanks again, as always, for being here. This is yet another amazing edition of Defender Fridays. Pedram Amini, one more time, thank you for being here. To everyone else, thanks for showing up. Appreciate you all coming here week after week. Obviously, Pedram, the invite stays open if you'd like to join us for these little 30 minutes every Friday. We'd love to have you here, regardless of where you are in the world. Other than that, everyone, same place, same time, Defender Fridays next week. I hope and I'll get a chance to be here and lead y'all through this wonderful foray that we know as Defender Fridays in cybersecurity. But with that said, enjoy the rest of your weekend.